Hello, welcome to the webinar, Why Limb Loss and Limb Difference Awareness Month Matters. My name is Jerrica Thurman. I am the Director of Communications at the Amputee Coalition. And today we will discuss the history of the Amputee Coalition, how our Awareness Month got started, and the impact that we make. And you will also hear from 3 community members about how our Awareness Month helps the limb loss and limb difference community. Did you know the Amputee Coalition got started in 1986? A small group of amputee support group leaders recognized the need for an organization dedicated to the needs of people with limb loss, their families, and healthcare providers. Working entirely as volunteers, they laid the foundation for what the Amputee Coalition is today, the leading national nonprofit organization that empowers individuals with limb loss through education, support, and advocacy and prevention. In 1997, the Amputee Coalition developed the National Limb Loss Resource Center after receiving a cooperative agreement with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Our resource center supports programs and publications designed to help people return to an active lifestyle and function as a productive member of society. The Amputee Coalition currently receives a competitive grant through the Administration for Community Living, which continues to fund the successful activities of the organization. Because our organization was built on the foundation that peer support is critical to recovery and readjustment, our programs have a large focus on peer support. In 1991, we began our Certified Peer Visitor Program, which trains amputees to meet with new amputees to give them inspiration, hope, and information about living well with limb loss. This program now includes more than 900 certified peer visitors across the nation. In addition to our Certified Peer Visitor Program, we manage our National Peer Support Group Network, which links amputees with ongoing peer support in their communities. More than 350 support groups are members of this network. Since 2003, more than 7,000 people have attended our national conference. As the nation's premier educational event for the limb loss community, Amputee Coalition's conference brings together hundreds of people living with limb loss, limb difference, their family members, and healthcare professionals for learning, interaction, and networking. No other educational event in the United States addresses issues important to amputees and their families. In 2012, we launched a new educational program series called Limb Loss Education Days, which brings our high-quality educational programming to the local level and serving amputees in their communities. The Amputee Coalition named April as the National Limb Loss Awareness Month in 2010. Today, the month is celebrated across the United States and around the world as a time to recognize those living with limb loss and to raise awareness about limb loss prevention. Now I turn it over to my colleague, Colin Schaefer, who will share more about the impact our Awareness Month makes. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Colin Schaefer, and I'm the communication specialist here for the Amputee Coalition. You may know me from the background because I'm the one who's posting on all the social media posts across our channels. So this is the face behind all the posts that have been going on. So today we're here to talk about the importance of Limb Loss and Limb Difference Awareness Month. So we're going to go through and give a little bit of history about why this month is important and all of the statistics about the reason that we have this month. So what you may not know is that the Amputee Coalition is the leading national nonprofit organization working to support people with limb loss and limb difference. Our mission is to reach out and empower people affected by limb loss and limb difference to achieve their full potential through education, support, advocacy, and to promote limb loss and limb prevention. As Jerrica said, back in 2010, the Amputee Coalition decided to have Limb Loss Awareness Month to really raise awareness to the 2.1 million American people living with limb loss and limb difference. The statistics show that 185,000 people in America get an amputation every year. Also, 507 people receive an amputation each day. There are 1,729 military personnel that have experienced limb loss due to combat since 9/11. 3.6 million people will be living with limb loss by 2050. 36% of people living with limb loss experience depression. Lifetime healthcare costs for people with limb loss is $509,275, compared to the $361,200 for people without limb loss. African Americans are 4 times more likely to have an amputation than white Americans. Hospital charges for patients who underwent an amputation totaled $10 billion in 2014. Approximately 31% of all amputations are female and 69% are male. What many of you may not know is that the cause for amputation is vascular disease, which is 54%. Trauma is 45% and cancer is 2%. There is 35% of the population that is an upper limb amputee and 65% are lower. The reason we have Limb Loss and Limb Difference Awareness Month is to shed light on our community and invoke change. We do this through sharing stories, through donations, and encouraging equitable healthcare and prosthesis costs for those living with limb loss and limb difference. When we all come together and show our support, great things happen. For example, the National Limb Loss Resource Center got funded by President Biden through 2022 to 2023, and the AAA Study Act was passed, which will put us in the right step to getting towards insurance fairness for those living with limb loss and limb difference. Because we work together to raise awareness, we are invoking real change in real time, and we are grateful for your support and for letting us serve you. In a moment, you will hear from 3 of our community members, Louis De Leon, Leslie Green, and Brandon Saunier, and they will tell their stories and give perspectives on why the Limb Loss and Limb Difference Month is so important. So thank you for listening with me, and we look forward to hearing from you and sharing your stories in the future. Thank you.
My name is Luis Obando de Leon, and I'm 53 years old. And 11 years ago, I lost my leg in a car accident on the freeway going to work. It was a cold morning, rainy morning, and someone hit my car, and I thought it was so smoking inside my car, and I got out of the car, and the cars kept coming, and so I decided to get back to my car because someone might hit me. And I was going to get into my car again when someone actually hit my legs, and I was rushed to the hospital, and they brought me to the nearest hospital, and of course they told me to sign papers because they were going to amputate my legs, and I was totally in shock. And of course no one wants to lose their limbs, and I request my transfer to the hospital where I originally belonged to because of my insurance. So they brought me there, and the result was the same, but at least I know that I got a second opinion, and I'm here. I'm a peer visitor. I'm a support group leader, and I'm very happy to help with the Amputee Coalition. In 2010 or 11, I'm not sure, Amputee Coalition had its conference in California, and someone sent me a link to go through, because honestly I was really having bad thoughts about all my situation, and I just was very depressed. I didn't want to live anymore, and someone sent me the link to the conference, and I said, well, my family keep insisting, why don't you go try and see what's going on? And so I went, and that's why really, really keep saying, and I'll be thankful forever to the Amputee Coalition because it saved my life, basically. I went to the conference and it changed totally the way I was thinking by looking at more people with more complications that I was having, and more amputations that I had, and it really changed the way I was thinking. And from then on, I was with the Amputee Coalition, and that's where I met my support group, and because they were having a booth there, and I met them, and since then I've been with the Amputee Coalition and with my support group, which is Amputee Connections of Redlands. I met different kind of people and different kind of amputations, and it's great to know that you're helping someone. And because I didn't have that help that at the time, that's why I'm doing it, so I can help others, because I didn't have the help that I wanted. It's great to be informed after the amputation. Absolutely, it is important because we can show others and perhaps educate them how it's like to live with an amputation, and it's fantastic way to have awareness of how we overcome our challenges as well. Well, for me, it was actually when I had my first conference. I was still using my hand crutches to walk because I was having problems with my balance, and I didn't trust my leg. And well, I took one of the mobility clinics at the conference with the greatest therapist, Bob Gailey, and at the end, I didn't need my crutches anymore. And that was such a big impact in myself. And I learned how to trust my leg, and I gained more my balance. And it was a fantastic moment for me because I gained more confidence on myself. And I knew that I was gonna be okay. And besides, I wasn't alone, which is a great thing to know, that I'm not alone as an amputee.
My name is Leslie Green, and I'm an individual who thrives as a bilateral below-the-knee amputee. I work to provide education and resources nationally for individuals preoperatively, postoperatively, and beyond. And my connection to the Amputee Coalition goes back 6 years to the very beginning of my journey as an individual with limb loss. And my connection initially with them was as a lead advocate for the state of Minnesota. That was the first endeavor in. They brought me training on how to advocate for many, and I brought forward the communities that I moderate. So it was a great pairing right from the beginning. Pull any punches. You're going to hit me with the big one right from the beginning. I love it. I think it's appropriate that we take a month out and reconsider who individuals in this community are. I think historically, if we look back at the roles that individuals with limb loss and limb difference have played throughout the millennia. We see that they have been leaders of innovation, rulers of nations. They have been individuals who have seen challenges and risen above them. And I think this is a wonderful month to help those who are not affected by limb loss or limb difference reconsider who individuals are in this community, but in the community as a whole. And hopefully reconsider how we label or regard ability based on physical appearance, and how we look at how we value in terms of intrinsic worth. And I think as a society, we are doing much better than we have in many years. But this month helps us take one more step forward and engage others who aren't touched by limb loss or limb difference directly. Look at what their role is in changing the perception and experience. So to that end, I think it's a critical month for all of us to engage in. Well, the value is invaluable, right? And then to that, I speak to that from many levels. I've been associated with the Amputee Coalition my entire time as a bilateral amputee. And in that regard, I've held positions as a volunteer, as a lead advocate. And there again, that goes to helping those not affected by limb loss or limb difference understand what it is to encounter the world, and then what their role is, whether it's legislative on a federal level or a local level, to understand their role and see where they can help enhance and change that. As a peer mentor, a person who can come alongside and again, play the role in change on a very immediate micro level. And as a person who moderates 16 national amputee education communities, the importance of the Amputee Coalition in that is to help get the word out that we're not alone, that there are resources available. So to be part of the Amputee Coalition, the value that they add, again, you can see so many reasons why it's an invaluable resource. I think the memory that will forever stay with me was my very first encounter. I was being trained as a lead advocate for the state of Minnesota, and Mary Richards was just coming into her first tenure as president of the Amputee Coalition. And I had been sitting in a conference for several days when she was introduced. And so having had exposure to different members of the Amputee Coalition team, I was quite impressed. But when Mary Richards took front and center stage and simply said, we, in the course of our conversation, and kept saying, we, it struck me that we was not just a euphemism so that those of us in the room who had limb difference and limb loss felt supported. It was the reality of who the Amputee Coalition is. A coalition that goes in front of you when the need is there, who comes alongside of you to let you be partnering and to walk behind you in times and let you lead the way. And when Mary used the word we, it struck me as so genuine that this was a group that wasn't going to walk away from us when the time got tough or leave us to find our way on our own, but would lead. And that, to me, that simple use of two letters, we, has stayed true throughout her entire tenure and through my entire experience in the Amputee Coalition. So for many, many reasons, that's my favorite memory. We're not different from. We aren't a group of people who have lost ability or focus or passion. Those things are as integrated in us as they were before we lost our limbs, or if we're a person who was born congenitally with limb difference, that's never been a reality that changed. I think the one thing that I would hope is that people see beyond devices or lack of devices and see the person. And if you see an aid or a device, seeing it not as a barrier, but as an enhancement, not as a stigma, but as a status, a symbol of somebody who has creative abilities and adaptability beyond what you can imagine.
So 3 years ago, 3 years and 3 days ago, because the initial accident was 3 days before my amputation, I was in an on-set accident. I'm an executive producer, writer, and director of television shows. And I was producing the finale episode for season 1 of my show, LA's Finest, when a car stunt went wrong and a car went out of control and it hit the shipping container that was supposed to be a barricade between Video Village, where all of the producers and directors stand, and the stunt. And that shipping container crushed my foot. Beside me was my writing partner. It also went on his foot, but he broke 2 or 3 toes. He was fine, though we both share the emotional scars of that traumatic event. So 3 years, 3 days ago, my foot is crushed. I'm pinned under a shipping container on set for 15 to 20 minutes until the paramedics can arrive. When they arrive, I'm in lots of pain, but I'm still sort of with it. And I can hear them saying, just make sure you hold the foot. And when I heard them say the foot, not his foot, I knew immediately that ain't good. But I'm very stubborn. And in the ambulance going to the hospital, I tell the paramedics, do not take my foot. I have 4 children. I need to dance with my daughter at her wedding. I coach all of my kids in Little League. I need my foot. You can't take my foot. Then I, succumbed to the pain. I'm sure I passed out. It's kind of a blur. But as the story goes, when I arrived at the hospital, the doctor said, we're going to need to amputate this foot. The paramedics told them, he said, no, you may not amputate the foot. I woke up, the doctor said, hey, can we cut off your foot? I said, no, you need to call my wife. I need to call my wife. I finally got on the phone with my wife. And what I said to her was, don't let them take my foot. And so I was put in a helicopter from the UCLA hospital down in Long Beach, where I was, and flown to UCLA in Westwood, where they had a different surgical team, and they brought in the trauma surgeon that was the guy, and he came and he put my foot back together. So it was, I think, 9 hours of surgery. They reassembled the foot, and then I was in the hospital for another couple days. And on the 3rd day, I had undergone hyperbaric chamber treatments. There was, there was really barely any pulse in the foot, but I was starting to get blood infections. And so, I was getting blood transfusions and things were getting very scary. And my wife and I had a conversation, and she said, this doesn't look like it's working. And I said, yeah, it doesn't feel like it's working either. So my wife and I talked about what, where we stood in that moment. And that we together came to the decision that A, let's not risk your life over this. B, what the doctors are now saying is that even if the foot recovers, it's going to be problematic for the rest of your life. I didn't sign up to sit on the sidelines of my life. I have a very full and active life. And so the decision came, cut it off. My wife called the doctors in. Meanwhile, my youngest son is 5 months old. My wife is still breastfeeding. She's still pumping, and she's calling doctors in, and she's telling them, here's the deal. It's time to cut the foot off. And of course, these doctors who spent 9 hours reassembling the foot they said, no, well, it's going to work. It's going to work. And my wife and I had decided, and so my wife was very clear, no, we're going to cut it off now. And so they called the surgeon. He looked at photos and he said, yeah, you know what? You're right. We're going to have to amputate. So that was 3 years ago today. my foot was amputated. 3 years ago tomorrow, I woke up in the hospital with a below the knee amputation of my right leg. And a doctor came in. It was the prosthetist that I would be working with later. And the occupational therapist came in, and everyone came in. And on my bed, I saw a packet from the Amputee Coalition. And there was someone there, and I don't remember which person it was that said, just, you're going to need to look through this. It has a lot of information. You know, you're going to be okay. And so I talked to the occupational therapist, I talked to the physical therapist, I talked to the prosthetist about how things were going to work down the line. And then I read the welcome packet to the world of being an amputee. And it was very scary, not the packet, but that day. But one of the things that made it less scary was knowing, and in the packet, almost immediately it says, here is the number of amputees, and here are the number of people that at some point in their life will become amputees. And so immediately I understood, well, my life's not over, it's going to be different. And here is this group of people that I've now entered. I am now in a different group of people, and let me look into that. So that is the story, A, of the amputation, B, of how I came to know the Amputee Coalition. Because we don't tend to think about those with limb loss and limb differences until it happens to us or someone that we know or someone that we love. But we should all be aware of what the other people in our society are going through and what needs they may have just to get through their day. So it's important that we all speak up, that we all try and get a little bit of awareness and a little bit of representation out there, so that there is at least a base level of knowledge of what other people are going through. And with that knowledge will come empathy and compassion and hopefully policy change and workplace change and all of the things that happen when you just take a second to see the people around you. It's really hard. That's the thing. I think people see amputees, and I coach my kids' little league still. I do it, I do it with my prosthetic. I went back to work fairly quickly after surgery. I directed another episode of television. I did another one last year. I'm going to go do one in a few months. My job requires being on your feet all day, and I do that. And so people get the idea like, all right, well, it's over. Well, he had it cut off, but he's got that prosthetic. He puts it on in the morning and he goes off and goes about his day. And the thing that I want people to know, not for me, but for when they meet another amputee, when they encounter anyone with limb loss, is that they're still on their journey, no matter how far away from their accident or trauma or surgery or diabetes or whatever it was, they're still on the journey of limb loss. It doesn't get easy. You get used to it, but it never gets easy. It is always difficult, even when it looks easy. So I think that's the thing that people with all of their limbs often overlook, is that that person is still in the trauma of having lost a limb. It's just a different trauma now.